Hello everyone, welcome to another Geek and Dorks Reviews. Thank you for joining me today, and we're going to look into another mystery documentary that is available. This one is available on Netflix, so if you're a Netflix subscriber, you can check this out just as soon as you're done watching this video, and in this case, I have to highly recommend it. This is called The Central Park 5. This is from 2012, and I'm going to read the description here from IMDB. In 1989, 5 black and Latino teenagers from Harlem were arrested and later convicted of raping a white woman in New York City's Central Park. They spent between 6 and 13 years in prison before a serial rapist confessed that he alone had committed the crime, leading to their convictions being overturned. Set against a backdrop of a decaying city beset by violence and racial tension, The Central Park 5 tells a story of that horrific crime, the rush to judgment by the police, a media clamoring for sensational stories and an outraged public, and the 5 lives upended by this miscarriage of justice. Now, I'm going to do a review on this, and then I'm going to do a spoiler discussion on this, because I have a lot of very strong feelings after watching this. I think most of you will too. I highly recommend that if you are interested at all in the Black Lives Matter movement, that you check this out. It certainly echoes a lot of the sentiment that has been kicking around lately around cases of young black men being mistreated by law enforcement, and it certainly seems like in this case that may be what happened. In terms of this as a documentary, it is directed by Ken Burns and Sarah Burns, and someone else gets credit here too. David McMahon. What's great about this is Ken Burns is probably one of the best documentarians that we have of our time, in particular for retelling historical stories. You might have heard of his famous Civil War miniseries. He did another one on baseball that I guess I've heard was extremely well done. He's done a lot of different big Prohibition, the Dust Bowl, the Roosevelts. He even has a TV series documentary on cancer. So he goes after these really big issues, and he sometimes takes his time. Some of these series are multiple episodes, hours and hours and hours of content, but he's very good at what he does. And I can definitely say after watching this documentary that you're in very skilled hands as you're going through this story. It starts with a segment that I truly enjoyed about New York, even though it was about a darker, more crime-ridden New York than the New York that we all know and love today. That's why I'm wearing the Brooklyn hat. It was kind of cool to see where New York has come from, particularly in the 80s when, the subways were just tagged all over. I mean, every piece of the train on the subways looks like it's tagged by somebody. And I've ridden a couple of trains down there, and I can say that's definitely not the case nowadays, especially the way it was represented there. There's also some good music that's kind of kicking, just reminds you of late 80s. Of course, seeing the styles and fashions back then was kind of cool for someone that was alive during that time. But even if you weren't, I think that you'll get a lot out of watching this. In particular, that first segment. It was really eye-opening and educational. There's a bunch of interviews with some of the most important and influential people in terms of previous mayors, district attorneys, and the such that are part of New York's story and it ultimately turning around. And this case just really, that's one thing that's tough about watching this documentary is it almost feels like when I was watching the Making a Murderer documentary, and it's just like one thing after another where you're just shaking your head going, no, don't do this to these kids. No, don't, please don't do that. And it's like every bad step you think is going to happen eventually winds up happening. And even though it does have a bit of an uplifting ending, which I'll get to more in the spoiler discussion, it just resonates with this sense of injustice, that there's something we need to do differently. There's something that isn't working right with our system when things like this happen. Much like Making a Murderer. So if you're a fan of Making a Murderer at all, I almost guarantee you're going to enjoy this. I felt like it was a little long. It is just under 2 hours. you know, if they would have edited it a little harder, they probably could have taken out another 20 minutes. I don't think it would have really missed anything. But outside of that, it's ultimately an extremely compelling story. There's a lot of time spent kind of looking into the emotional aspect, how this affects the families. Of course, the emotional aspect of how it affects the guys that are put into prison for these crimes and the whole process they go through getting there. It's a pretty wild ride, and it's amazing to me to think that that story is only from 1989. It really feels like something that feels like it came out of the 60s or, you know, pre-civil rights movement era. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling that that case was handled in that way. And I don't want to blow it, so here's where I'm going to end this official part of the review. Before I go, I just want to tell you that on IMDb, they do rate it 7.7. Once again, I must know how to pick them. 7.7 out of 10, and that's based on over 4,000 votes, so that's a pretty good sample. And like I said, if you're interested in the Black Lives Movement at all, I think that this is pretty much mandatory viewing. Check this out and just look at the history of this problem in one small instance that really shouldn't have happened. And especially, I know that you brain scratchers are able to consider outside opinions, especially if maybe you aren't in line with the Black Lives Movement, or if you're not quite sure about all these recent charges we've had. Check this out and watch this movie, and then let's see what you think after that, because I really think that it's a very telling story, and it's probably more important, or just as important, not more important, it's just as important today that the truth is out there in this documentary, and it can add a lot of value to some of the problems we're facing today, in my opinion. But I'm curious about your opinion. That's what the comments below are for, so please let me know. I'm also always open to hearing about other documentaries, mysteries, other types of films that you think the Brain Scratch audience might like, so please drop any suggestions in the comments below and I'll check those out. I hope you're having a great day. I'll catch you, if you're continuing, I'll catch you in the spoilers discussion. If not, I'll catch you on the next show on the Geek and Dorks channel. Take care.